Welcome back to another episode of the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. Corey, Jason, Ben Mandel, John Pauline, Dylan, Mel. Guys, July starts tomorrow as we sit here and record this. All-Star game is about 2 weeks away. Home Run Derby, same thing. We're starting to get into that second half of the season. You know, we're 84 games in, 85 tonight. It's one of those things where the season's going by so quickly and it feels like there's so much more left to do. We have the Home Run Derby coming up, right? We spent a lot of time on the All-Star game.
Yep.
We haven't spoken about the Derby. We've got 2 guys out of the 8 participants solidified. That's Cal Raleigh from Seattle, big dumper, leads the league in home runs with 32. Longest of 25 is 440 feet at Chicago. The hardest hit ball he had, 113.2 versus Minnesota. That's the hardest hit home run. Obviously, those go into play, especially the distance for the extra ball in the Home Run Derby. He could end up being the second player to switch hit during the Home Run Derby after Adley Rutschman did it in 2023. He's the only other one. And then on the other side, we have Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Atlanta Braves. In front of his home crowd. This will be at Truist on July 14th. He's got 9 home runs. Doesn't sound like a lot when you compare it to Cal Raleigh, but that's 9 home runs since May 23rd when he came back from the IL. First game of the year was May 23rd, and that was also the date of his longest home run, 467 feet, and hardest hit home run, 115.5. Coincidentally, that was in his first at bat of the season that he did that. Acuna has been rolling. These are 2 guys that are really exciting to have in the Derby, but some guys that aren't. So we kind of point that out. Last year's champion, Teoscar Hernandez, said no. 2023's champion, Vlad Guerrero Jr., also out. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, and Ellie De La Cruz, somebody who a lot of people really wanted to be in. They're all declining the ability to be in the Home Run Derby. So I got a couple names, and I hope you guys have some thoughts as well on who you think might, want to join. Easiest one to bring up first, Pete Alonso. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't agreed to it yet.
Well, Pete Alonso is, if you look at it, feels so far down the major league home run total and really a power drought as of late, has not been hitting a lot of home runs lately, I feel like is the reason why we're hearing that. I can think of 3 other names, including one that is on the Mets, that is a better option for the Home Run Derby than Pete Alonso right now from the National League. First one I want to jump at is Eugenio Suarez. The guy is absolutely raked this year for Arizona. He's a big name for that, or he's a big-time piece coming up this offseason to see what's going to happen, and I think really could be one of the first big dominoes this offseason that tells what Arizona's direction is. I would love to see him in the Derby. He has 25 home runs. That's tied for 4th with Kyle Schwarber. I think Schwarber definitely should be a name that should be in the Home Run Derby. And then why not round it out with 3 NL East teams representing the National League and throw Juan Soto in the mix with the power surge he's been on? I mean, why not? I think that would be fun.
Yeah, Soto's a huge name. He didn't make my list of the 3 NL guys. Suarez and Schwarber did. Suarez, a guy that we know when he gets hot, he could stay hot. He had the 4 home run game this year. I think it'd be really interesting to see him in a situation like that. Schwarber, Truist Park slightly favors lefty batters. It's not, it's a pretty normal basic park as it is.
Second highest altitude in the major leagues behind Colorado, by the way. So
yes, this should be a fun derby. And Schwarbombs will be rolling. The third name that I had for the NL was James Wood. James Wood has been phenomenal this year. He has been a shining star for the Washington Nationals. So, for me, that would also be 3 NL East guys, just not one from the Mets.
I also we're having a lot of the same names. The only one that pretty much different, I have James Woods, Eugenio Suarez. but I have O'Neal Cruz.
The man doesn't want his own Philadelphia Philly in the Derby.
I just feel like we have all these like MLB has all these like new faces, all these young guys coming up who are hidden, and it's just like you feel like you got to capitalize on it.
I mean, O'Neal Cruz only had 15 homers. I wonder if that's too low to get him in.
Yeah, but he hits the ball hard. Like I think he had like the Corey? Didn't he have like the hardest?
He
hit
had a
home
couple
run?
of
Yeah,
absolute
like really.
rockets
Oh,
yesterday
yeah.
against the Mets.
And he's got a
I
cannon
mean,
of an arm. Like, he's just a freak athlete. I just
Like,
wonder how far down the list they go on the invites.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're gonna put Acuna in with 9 home runs,
yeah,
like-
but
Acuna,
hold on.
I get the
Acuna's at
special
home,
thing, but
the
I
end of
mean,
May.
and Acuna's at home.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not in
that's the
Pittsburgh.
reason why you make the exception for being hurt. But like, if you look at home runs per at bat, Acuna's got to be close to the top.
Oh, for sure.
absolutely. I had, obviously Acuna's there on my list. I had Suarez as a possibility. I put James Wood. I also had O'Neal Cruz, in addition to the Pete Alonso I brought up, just to have some names out there. And then on the American League side, 2 names that I really think would be fun. Obviously, Kansas City's Jack Caglianone. He's built for the home run derby, just like Pete Alonso is. The way his swing would be, I think that would be really fun. And how about Jazz Chisholm Jr. with this power surge? He's got the most home runs in his career in a single month right now. He's got the highest home run total for a month in his career. He's hitting home runs at a crazy pace, especially since coming back from the IL. He seems like there seems to be somebody like him in every home run derby, a guy you don't really think of as a prolific power hitter that will end up doing this, especially with that sweet lefty swing. I can definitely see Jazz doing this.
Yeah, and I think Jazz is a good shout because what Ben just talked about in terms of why Acuna's in for home runs per at bat, you look at the guys at the top of the AL list and Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge and Taylor Ward, they all have 300 plus at bats, but Jazz Chisholm at 190 has 13 home runs. So if you gave him an additional 120 at bats, I don't think he's at Aaron Judge, Cal Raleigh, but in third place in the AL for home run leader is Taylor Ward with 20. Jazz,
I think you can
be
give
at that
him 5
number.
home runs at minimum in 120 at bats. I don't think that's unfair to say.
Yeah, so I think he's
Especially
a fine
Yankee
shout to
Stadium.
be in the conversation for sure. I also think Spencer Torkelson is an interesting name to bring up. He's had stretches this year where it feels like he homers 3-4 days in a row. Then he goes a little cold. But again, similar to what John talked about, one of the younger stars in the game. He's on a team that, it switches all the time, but they have one of the best, if not the best record in all of baseball. Could be good to get some Detroit Tiger representation in there. You could do Riley Green instead if you'd rather, but Torkelson, kind of the younger, bigger name on the team in my estimation. And even a Byron Buxton could be fun.
Yeah, see, it's funny, Dylan, you bring up Torkelson and Riley Green. The name I'm all over is Kerry Carpenter, because if you want to talk about just pure raw power, he's the guy in Detroit. He is about as streaky as they come, but Kerry Carpenter to me would be a very fun name to watch. And hey, we still have a couple weeks, 2 weeks until the Derby. If he goes on a run this week and hits 4 home runs, all of a sudden he's right there among the league leaders in the American League. I mean, he's nowhere near Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge, but third place is 10 behind Judge at 20. So, he's right there. I do agree. And Byron Buxton or Taylor Ward, I think, maybe getting the Angels some representation there with Warden. But again, I'm thinking in terms of raw power, Brandon Lau would be a fun one to watch as well. Just see if he could put on a Dan Uggla-esque performance in Atlanta.
Yeah, I could see that. I also think in terms of just raw power, Brent Rooker on the A's is somebody
That's
to
what I
look
was
at.
just gonna say. I was gonna say Brent Rooker, and then I was gonna bring up Junior Caminario.
Yeah.
He's sitting there with 20 home runs too.
That's another. Those are some really good
Yeah.
ones.
This exercise made me realize how much better the NL is suited for the home run derby this year than the AL, especially with Judge not doing it.
This just means that the AL is still going to win it. Whenever you see one side grossly more competent than the other, just like how the All-Star game has looked the last few years, how the NL always seems to have the better roster, the AL's just going to win. They got grit. They got that dog in them.
Then whoever the NL team wins the World Series, then
Is that really what's
I'm
been
pretty
going on?
sure that's I think
I mean, the
not all the
AL
time,
has
but
won
I
the
mean,
All-Star game, I think, like 15 of the last like 17 years or something like that.
yeah, they dominated it.
Yeah, the Astros definitely got the Astros and Red Sox. Their World Series alone means that that's not like 100%, but
They
No, I
cheated.
just also remember though, growing up, it was always the American League winning. Then the National League had like a 3 or 4 year stretch, and it's been all American League since.
yeah,
Do you
that's
guys like the All-Star game not meaning anything, like for home field
Absolutely
advantage
not.
or not?
It should mean something.
yeah. If I so I go back and forth on it because if you have to have representation from every team, then I get why it doesn't need to mean anything. But
Yeah, I
back
agree
when,
with Dylan there, especially when you
yeah,
have the best guys sitting out.
because those guys
You
are
have
usually on the
guys who
best
have
teams.
no business being named all stars at some points, being on this team. I agree, it should not be meaning anything, but also don't be upset when no one tunes in because of that.
Yeah,
So
back when we were younger, and you would see what was it? I believe like the '06 All-Star game was just like half of it was the Chicago White Sox, like who had just won the World Series. But the point being that that was full of guys who were on teams competing for World Series.
Yeah.
So they were
Also, with
willing
the
to
fan
bust.
vote, the fan vote doesn't help either.
Oh, the fan
Yeah.
vote is
The
pretty.
fan vote just makes it Dodgers versus AL.
So the All-Star game since the year 2000, I feel like 24 plus this year is a pretty good sample size, right?
Fair.
Sure,
The
yes.
American League is 19-4 versus the NL since 2000.
AL represent.
All right, look up if we look up that stretch, I'm pretty sure the NL won 3 or 4 in a row.
All right, so the NL did win 3 in a row, 2010, 2011, and 2012. And then they also won in 2023.
Wow.
Every other year.
So there was like a 10-year stretch where they just didn't win once.
There was multiple 10-year stretches, it seems.
And then in 2002, it was a tie, it looks like.
A tie?
It says N77. So I don't know what the deal with that is.
We're all just quickly, what the hell happened?
How many times has an NL team won the World Series in that span? Just out of curiosity.
Not that many.
It's like
It
from like
ended in a
2000 to
7-7 tie
2024.
after 11 innings.
They just stopped playing?
Both teams ran out of available pitchers.
That is insane.
They ran out of pitchers. Joe Torre and Bob Brenly were the managers.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at it all now. See, but this is what I was talking about. The Yankees with, what is that, 3 All-Stars? The Red Sox with 3 All-Stars? So teams that were competing for World Series at that time, it's all them.
Out of the starting 9, 8 of them ended up playing for the Yankees or Red Sox at any point in their career.
Yeah, but that season, 2/3 of the lineup was on either the Yankees or Red Sox, and the guys that weren't, A-Rod, Torrey Hunter, Ichiro Suzuki.
Plus, if you look at the bench, you have Robin Ventura and Derek Jeter with the Yankees, and Nomar Garciaparra with the Red Sox, and Johnny Damon with the Sox on the bench. Just since we're here, the Philly and Met All-Stars, nobody on the bench. Let's see. The Phillies had Vicente Padilla. You guys might remember him as the guy who would always fight Mark Teixeira whenever they played.
Mm-hmm.
No Mets pitchers.
Was it Piazza?
The only Met All-Star was Mike Piazza.
Yeah.
The Phillies had Scott Rowland and Jimmy Rollins also as an All-Star.
What a time.
What a time indeed.
Thank you for the trip down memory lane to the 2002 All-Star game that ended in a tie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where the American League is dominated for so long, And each year in and year out, last year's result has no bearing whatsoever on this year. They're not connected. The players could be the same, could be different, but they don't mean anything. And they've just dominated for so long.
So I looked up.
It's
the
like when you
World
flip a
Series
coin.
stuff.
It could be heads or it could be tails. Even if you get 50 heads in a row, that has no bearing on if the next one will be heads or tails. Each is independent of the other.
I do
But-
have the stats on the World Series stuff though.
Let's hear it.
National League has won 13 and the American won 12 since 2000.
So it's
Looks
pretty
like
50.
it's AL time.
It's
Looks like it's AL time, baby.
Yankees get their revenge on the Dodgers. I like the sound of that.
It's our time.
Let's talk about our teams because the Phillies, who have been so hot compared to the other two for the last few weeks, they went 2-4 since our last episode. Got swept by Houston 0-3. Then went 2-1 versus Atlanta. 49-35 overall. 5-5 in their last 10. They're 1.5 up on the Mets. Bryce Harper's back. Going to the futures game for the Phillies. I want to get your thoughts on this, John. You have Andrew Painter.
He's
Phillies
not.
number
He's
one
not
pro-
playing anymore in the futures game.
No, he was
No.
selected originally.
He
huh?
was, but he's not going to pitch anymore. They're going to shut him down.
Why? Is he hurt?
I have no clue.
Well, he is the Phillies' number 1 prospect and the number 5 prospect overall. That's awful. You have no.
I-
We're just,
I just
laughing
read it
at
like-
the fact that Andrew Painter, it's always the year that he's going to play, and now he's being shut down.
I swear, like I just read it like an hour, not even an hour before we got on the pod, that he was going to pitch in the futures game, and then about a half hour, like about a little half hour later, I saw that he wasn't going to pitch anymore.
And then they're also sending over catcher Eduardo Teal, number 4 in the Phillies org, number 69 overall. John, what's going on in Phillies land? How you feeling? Harper said some troubling stuff about his pain management. How do we feel about that?
I didn't even see what Harper said. to be completely
Basically, he
honest.
said that he's kind of stalled in the improvement, and now it's just basically having to deal with this and having to deal with the pain. It's not going to get any better.
Breaking news: Bryce Harper old.
Ugh.
Like that's what happens.
Wait,
Like,
I
and that's
mean,
just what happens as
I
you get
don't-
older as a player.
Yeah. You get older, and then I
Yeah.
think I don't know if he's rushing back or if he's playing when he shouldn't be playing. But I mean, for a while they were doing good without him. I mean, the pitching has been fantastic, and they're gonna hit, but it really hurts not having Harper. And
You think Kyle Schwarber could learn first base?
yeah, I honestly think almost anyone can learn first base.
I mean, maybe DH
I mean-
Harper if he can.
that might be a possibility. I mean, if you sign Schwarber again, move him to first, DH Harper. I mean, at this point, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's like he just like like a thing where he just needs to rest during the off season and will feel better, or if it's just this is just going to be like an ongoing thing from now on that's just going to keep nagging him, and he's just going to have to deal with it.
somehow, some way, people are going to blame this on him drinking raw milk in the offseason.
I mean, listen, I think it's just a pain management thing at this
Yeah.
point. I think the quote isn't great, but I bet there's a lot of guys in baseball right now that they've kind of just stalled, and day by day, like whatever injury they have hurts, and then they get treatment for it and go out and battle through it the next day.
Phillies are, by the way, up 4-0 on the Padres in the top of the 8th.
Nick Castellanos hit a solo home run.
Yes, he did. Bryce Harper 0 for 2 with a walk.
Not surprising. Sometimes I wish they would just let these players, like if you have an injury and you're going through the pain and you're doing bad, like just
Well-
go get treatment for it and sit out, because I feel like you're not doing the team any favors.
Well, the problem is, though, how competitive the NL East is. Philly needs Bryce Harper to be playing. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like if he's good to go, he's good to go. They got to play him. Obviously, the Mets cold streak, which we'll talk about, has been helpful, but this is going to be a dogfight through September.
I think I would have rather them just keep Harper out until after the All-Star break instead of trying to bring him back. Because I mean, at this point, I mean, you have the Mets on the cold streak. I mean, their Phillies are still doing okay. I mean, your pitching is fantastic. At least the starting pitching has been. So it's like, just I would have just let him just rest and then try to bring him back after the All-Star break, so you have him for 100% towards the end of the season and going into the playoffs, rather than trying to get him in before then.
Yeah,
Because
that's fair.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Now with the Mets, who have been struggling, they're 2-4 since the last episode. They went 2-1 versus Atlanta, and then got swept by the Pirates. 0 wins, 3 losses. 48-37 overall, 3-7 in their last 10. I think over the last 20 games, they have the worst record in baseball or something like that.
Yeah, they're close. It's been a bad June.
1.5 back of Philly. They're 1 up on wild card 1, but the June swoon is no stranger to the Mets. And Ben, as a Met fan, knows better than anybody how it does get better after June. Right?
Look, we'll see the calendar. The Mets are thankfully done for June. They don't have any more games in June, so that's lucky for the Mets. But at the same time, it's been a tough stretch for them. The pitching hasn't been there, the offense hasn't been there. A lot of guys have gone cold. Juan Soto's finally picking it up, but everyone else is not doing anything behind him. The Mets have holes that need to be filled. You got to go out and figure out something for center field. I'm okay with letting the organization figure out between second and third, between Brett Beatty, Vientos, and McNeil. I think you can survive that if you go out and get a legitimate center fielder and stop platooning there. I think that there could be some stability there, could certainly help this team. And then, I mean, the pitching has fallen off. The starting pitching needs to be better. And in terms of solution there, without getting too desperate just yet, call up Sproat. Call up Brandon Sproat. This is around the time when you would have expected him to come up anyway. This is your top pitching prospect. Let him get him up here and see what he can do. I think that would be the best thing, and a spark that could really kind of jolt this team.
So going to the futures game for the Mets, it's interesting that you brought up center field and a pitcher. They're sending Carson Benji, the Mets number 3 prospect, number 81 in baseball. He's an outfielder. And they're also sending over Jonathan Tong, the Mets number 4 prospect and MLB's number 92. So they have a pretty deep system as it is. And it just so happens that 2 spots that they can use help are 2 spots where they have guys that are, going to the futures game to show off.
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to Jonah Tong, he's, still a work in progress. He had a couple of okay years in Brooklyn, but this is, this season has been where he's really taken off. He's started 14 games. He's pitched to a 1.73 ERA, 73 innings, 33 walks, but he has found a way to strike out 115 guys in those 73 innings. A 0.92 whip. Opponent's batting average is a 137. I mean, the guy has been unbelievable. Just 2 home runs this season in Binghamton. Was named the May player of the or pitcher of the month for minor league baseball. So, he's someone who I am very excited to see. It's just the thing is he's not quite there yet. Like, he's not ready. Tong is 22. Sproat, on the other hand, although not pitching in the futures game, he may not be having the best season so far, but he is the guy who has all the stuff. He's 24 years old. He'll be 25 come September. It's around the time when he should be making his big league debut. Now, the other guy, Benji, who you brought up, he's had a very strong season. But again, it's not one of those, situations where he's quite ready to go. This is someone who, made his way up from Brooklyn to Binghamton. You don't necessarily want everyone to skip AAA. I know some people do it, but it is not the recommended way to go. And throughout the minor leagues this year for Benji, 241 at bats, 17 stolen bases, 4 home runs, 38 RBIs, a 299 average, and 887 OPS. Those are not numbers that jump at you and say, hey, this guy has to get up to the big leagues right now. An exciting project for the future, but certainly neither of these 22-year-olds are going to be able to help out this organization this season.
Now looking at the Yankees, Dylan, they are 3-2 since the last episode. They went 1-1 versus Cincinnati since we last talked, and then went 2-1 versus the A's over the weekend. 48-35 overall, 6-4 in their last 10, somehow, some way. Doesn't feel like it. And they're 1.5 up on Tampa for the division. They're only sending George Lombard Jr., their number 1, MLB's number 37 prospect, to the Futures game. Spencer Jones did go to AAA, hitting home run after home run. Can't help but to think that that's trade bait to the highest degree.
I thought the same exact thing. I think that they moved him in AAA for trade bait and are jumping up and down at what they're seeing, thinking, could we like pose him as the next Judge? Look at how tall he is. He's in our system. He hits home runs.
Can play center field. But the Yankees, are they getting out of this funk? Is Aaron Judge getting out of his funk? His batting averages fell, 40 points in the last 3 weeks?
Yeah, the June swoon hit Judge, hit the Yankees for a little while there, and it seems the return of Jazz Chisholm has kind of lit a fire under this team to some extent. Jazz has come back and been absolutely fantastic. I think the Yankees need to extend him ASAP. This is a guy. It's tough because he doesn't just play one position. So I'd give him a lot. Guess that's the answer. Obviously it depends on years and what he's looking for, but since he has come to New York, the pace he's been on has been all-star-esque when he's healthy. So I'd pay him like he's an all-star about to enter the prime of his career. Like, you talking about 300 plus if you're looking at, if you're looking at years, he's young. Like, this is what we talked about. Obviously, it's him and Soto, different players.
This is the divide between us, because I have an idea of like what I would extend him at, and I'm looking at 5 for 125 as being where I think it's a more than fair deal.
Well, so you're talking about 5. Are they locking him down for career? Are we getting to 8, 9, or are we playing a 5 game?
We're playing a 5 game with his injuries and his inconsistencies. I wouldn't, if I had to go 6, I would consider it, but I wouldn't go. I would really want to be at 5. That brings him to 32.
Yeah, so I'm thinking if it's going to be shorter, you probably got to pay up more on the AAV, which the Yankees don't like to do, which is why I don't think that they'll do that, and I think that they'll pay him longer. But if 5 was the number, I mean, the guy could play second, the guy could play third, the guy is the best base runner on the team, the guy has the second best pop on the team in terms of consistency, the guy could play center if you need him to. I mean, he's got a lot of leverage walking in there. If it's 5, I'm asking for 30 to 35 a year as the starting point if I'm him. I mean, he's got to enter the prime of his career, and the ballpark's made for him.
30.
I would. But I guess conversation for another day, potentially the offseason or when the extension happens. But the Yankees have been good. I do think Spencer Jones is a potential trade piece. We talked about the starting pitching. I would still like them to acquire another arm. I don't believe they're going to with the way Rodon has really come along. They feel like they have, I mean, they do have a really good top two in him and Fried. Clark Schmidt has been very solid since he's come back, and they've already come out and said that they view Luis Gil as a trade deadline addition. So that basically streams to me, we will not be trading for a starting pitcher unless it is on the very cheap. But what they do need to do is trade for some bullpen arms that I can believe in consistently. Devin Williams, been solid. Luke Weaver, been solid. The rest, hit or miss.
I mean, you weren't on last week, but there was a team that we brought up and a reliever we brought up that I think matches perfectly with the Yankees. Minnesota's Yohan Duran. 2.5 years. Twins aren't competing right now. They should sell him at the height of his value. I think he's somebody that will get traded. And then if you maybe eat some money from, let's say, a Carlos Correa to play third base for you so you can move Jazz back to his natural second. And
I mean, what's the package there then?
Well, you're headlining it with pretty much anybody other than Lombard and Schlittler. Anybody else is fair game. And I think that makes them a exponentially better team because you're getting a high-end back of the bullpen arm, somebody that will be your closer next year because Weaver and Williams are both free agents. And you're getting Correa, who can win, and he can play third for you.
Well,
I'm not saying I disagree. I don't see them doing it. I think it's more they'll go for a bullpen arm.
Yeah, I don't think that the Yankees would be willing to take on Correa, if I'm being completely honest with you, although I could totally see Correa turning things around completely if he has any kind of change of scenery. But, especially going to New York, where he is most hated. If he can go there.
Most hated. Second most.
Either way. Well, no, I'm saying that is where he is most hated, is in New York. Like, no one hates Correa more than New York, is more what I'm saying. I'm not saying he is the most hated person. But anyway, the thing, I think that really you shouldn't have to give up too much in this if you're taking on a Correa. I think that taking on Correa's contract is the headliner in any kind of deal because there aren't going to be a lot of teams willing to do it. And
yeah, maybe that's the Spencer Jones bait where they're trying to go there.
I think that's more enticing, and I think that might be the only thing that makes the Yankees do it is if they don't have to give up much and you're able to deepen your infield significantly because hey, if you want to keep Jazz at third and put Correa at second, you can do that. If Correa is your best option,
you wouldn't. Because Jazz, I'm saying Jazz wants to get out of third. Jazz hates playing third.
No, and I'm just saying though, in general, you know what? I think Jazz wants to win a World Series, and if that was the situation, that's what he would do. But
of course, the thing that I do like about Correa is he's a proven postseason player. Whereas, obviously, the big knock on the Yankees and Aaron Judge.
He's not a middle third guy in this lineup. You're going
to
no. in. At best, he ends up being a terrific leadoff guy.
I don't think he's going to be
7th or 8th.
I'm not saying he's going to be the World Series MVP. I'm just saying you get somebody in there that you could rely on as a postseason bat.
I mean, to get 30-year-old Carlos Correa, somebody who's still in the prime of his career, a change of scenery.
I don't know if you would necessarily say prime with the injuries and
but
everything that's gone on with him. There's a reason that all of those teams backed out on the deals for him.
You're right.
2 teams back out. And he has not been the same player. So his
contract isn't anything, awful. If you look at his contract, looking at Spot Rack, he signed a 6-year, $200 million deal. He's got this year all the way through 2028, making a good chunk of money. Don't get me wrong. 37 this year, 33 next year, 32, 31. But then after that, he's got 4 vesting options that he just won't touch. So you're out of this in 3.5 years. I don't think that's an awful deal, especially if you're eating that money, or if you convince the Twins, if you give some better prospects to split that money in a way similar to what you did with Miami with Stanton, let them pay for some of those back end years. I think it's just a move that makes them a better team. And getting somebody like that who's won helps them now because you have Goldschmidt, who he's kind of fallen off.
Well, it's a veteran heavy team, and you have
Right.
to approach it that way. Rodon, Freed, Judge, Goldschmidt, like those
Also
are not
a
young
team too,
Stanton.
though. You have Peraza, Jazz, Volpe, Dominguez, Rice, Wells. So it's a very
It's a bright
balanced
future.
team where you're getting a lot of the young kids to play a lot. And bringing in another veteran, somebody who kind of splits the age difference between the Goldschmidts and the Stantons and the Dominguez and the Volpes, I think that really helps, especially if they've won. We'll talk more about it as we get closer to the deadline. But the Yankees now, bullpen needs to be where they put their focus.
Well, I think all three of our teams should be making moves as if they can win the World Series this year. You know, a move that I think is interesting for Ben's Mets is, you know, need some starting pitching. You know who's got a really good starting pitcher that has played for the Mets and they're probably should be sellers is the Texas Rangers. And just bring back DeGrom.
You know, the Mets broadcast has talked about, do you bring back DeGrom? And I think everybody has said yes in a heartbeat. If the opportunity is there, you do it.
And I think if you're him, you should do it. Even though I know he loves Texas, that's like his home. Half a season with the Mets to go win a World Series for, I mean, at least be able to compete
more than
for
half
one.
a season. He's under contract still.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if they won, he retires King of New York.
Look, but that's the thing. Like, part of why he left is I think it was things aren't going to turn around. I think if you're the Mets, you send back. You would have no problem sending back a young arm prospect in return for Jacob deGrom. I don't know if Sproat's the one, just because typically you don't touch your most MLB ready prospect unless you have a complete logjam. So like typically you don't touch him, but you know, an enticing one could be a Matthew Allen. You know, a young guy. He's had a few elbow procedures, but the guy still touches, you know, high 90s. I think he could be, you know, an intriguing piece to
you're looking at
things off.
2 or 3. You're looking at least 2 top 10 prospects if you're looking to bring back DeGrom.
No, hey, I'm aware. I'm just saying in terms of the arms you're sending back. I'm not talking about headliners. I'm saying arms. You start with Matthew Allen. That's a project piece. And look, I think the other thing as well is Texas might be happy to get some money off their books. I think that's not something that can be understated because of how much money they've invested in that roster. And, you know, if they're selling DeGrom, that means you're turning over the roster a bit. You have $500 million alone invested in Seager and Semien. So there's definitely some things that can move around there.
So with that said, let's talk about some of our studs and duds, because I know Ben's going to have a lot to talk about with one of his guys. My stud is Otto Lopez, Miami second baseman. I was kind of shocked. If you look at his stats, right? 6 games, 26 at-bats, 11 hits, 2 home runs, 13 RBIs, and 26 at-bats. He's hitting .423 with 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, and a 1.231 OPS. And then my dud, future home run derby participant Jack Caglianone on the Royals, 6 games, 21 at-bats, 1 hit, 1 walk, no home runs, no RBIs, 7 strikeouts, hitting .048 with an OPS of .139. That is abysmal. People have batting averages. Bad players have batting averages higher than that OPS. What do you guys have?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a guy that we just talked about at length for my stud, Jazz Chisholm Jr. In the last 7 days, the guy has been on a tear, 6 for 25, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a triple, homered again tonight. So you could add 2 more to that in terms of RBIs and 1 more in terms of home runs. He's been an absolute beast. The average is coming up. Hopefully he can get it again to that 260, 270 mark by the end of the season. We'll see. Maybe I'm just being very hopeful there. It's at 242 right now. But he was a big reason the Yankees were able to get back on track versus the Athletics this past weekend. And my dud, any excuse to bring up Frankie Montas on the podcast against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 4 innings pitched, 7 hits, 6 earned runs. A bad day from Frankie Montas that nobody could have seen coming.
Not a single soul would have thought Frankie Montas would have blown it up. Nobody.
Look, sometimes you just need to eat innings, and that's what the Mets needed with how bad their bullpen has been as of late. But, for my stud, I want to highlight Jo Adell. This is a guy who has been fantastic. He earned American League Player of the Week honors with his numbers for the past 7 days. But on top of that, Jo Adell has really had what could be looked at as the best month of his career. He's had a nice little power stretch. And I mean, look, this is just a player who has gone out, not really performed after being, a highly valued prospect. And now things are starting to come together. For this past week, 5 games, 9 hits, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, but a 474 average, a 1.334 OPS. That's tops in the American League over the past 7 days, by the way. But you look at his numbers also for the month of June. Adell is a 1038 OPS, a 293 batting average, 11 home runs, 19 RBIs. This is a player who needed to break out on a team that needed someone to break out. Who knows? Maybe he becomes a trade piece if the Angels think that they could sell high on him. But Jo Adell, he's my stud. For my dud, I'm going to go with Adolis Garcia, even though Francisco Lindor is an honorable mention. I have named Lindor a dud before. He does perform quite a bit defensively. That's why I'm going to give him a pass here. But Garcia, this is a guy who Texas rode to a World Series a couple years ago. He feels pretty far removed from that. 5 games, 22 at-bats, just 2 hits. He did have 5 RBIs, but he also had 9 strikeouts, a 0.91 batting average, and a 1.74 OPS. An abysmal week for Adolis Garcia.
My stud this week is the pitcher that really kind of destroyed the Phillies this week, Spencer Schwellenbach. The past week he pitched 14 innings, got 2 wins, only gave up 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 16 strikeouts, and he had a career high 12 strikeouts against the Phillies. And he has his ERA almost down to under 3. It's a 3.09 ERA and a 0.97 WHIP on the year. So he's doing really good this year, and the Braves really needed him to step up, especially with Sale getting hurt and Spencer Strider. I guess, not, I would say, I don't think he's back to full form yet. So look at here. My dud, though, is JP Crawford. 5 for 31, 1 RBI, 7 strikeouts, a 161 batting average, 182 OBP, and a 161 slugging, which is just abysmal. Absolutely terrible. 5 for that, just really, really bad.
Now, we haven't done it in a minute, but we're going to do some moment of the week because James Wood of the Nationals, 22 years old, got intentionally walked 4 times in a game. The first person to do that since Barry Bonds in 2004, and just the 6th player ever. That was Bonds, Manny Ramirez, Andre Dawson, Gary Pendleton, and Roger Maris. And now James Wood. No Aaron Judge, no Shohei Ohtani, James Wood. It's pretty crazy. Intentionally walking a guy 4 times in a game. You just want him to have nothing to do with the outcome.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's why we got to get James Wood to the home run derby, because there were some at-bats taken away from him recently. My moment of the week is the Philadelphia Phillies just trouncing the Atlanta Braves 13-0, 5 homers in that game, 2 of them from Trey Turner. And I used the moment of the week segment to say justice for Trey Turner. Should have been at least the second shortstop for the NL All-Stars. Instead, the fan votes in the Dodger, Mookie Betts. I'd hear an argument for Ellie De La Cruz over Trey Turner. I won't hear one for Mookie Betts. Justice for Trey.
Yeah, I'm with you there. With you there, Dylan. But, you know, for me, my moment of the week, we're going down to Atlanta. And, you know, look, things are going pretty bad for my Mets and the Atlanta Braves. Things seem to be going better for them than my Mets. But, you know, things aren't going great for the Atlanta Braves when the Freeze gets absolutely cooked by a local track star who's now a cop. I mean, I think the Freeze lost by a good 40 to 50 feet. Didn't even come close. You never see that. Love to see the Freeze get beaten down in Atlanta.
This isn't even the original Freeze. This is the second or third person to do it. Nothing will beat the original.
My moment of the week is the Pirates sweeping the Mets and outscoring them in that series 30-4. Just love to see it, and it really helped out the Phillies because they kind of had a slide this past week. So I'm very happy.
Same result as if the Mets were outscored 30-27.
But it's 30-4. Just it doesn't look good. It's an optic thing.
The optics were really, really bad.
Look, hey, and you know what?
You had a team meeting and then got blown out the next
Cardinals
day.
are a ridiculously good team by any means, but the Pirates are absolutely trouncing them right now as well. So their offense is just going.
O'Neal Cruz, home run derby.
Now let's talk about the Freeze.
Let's talk about our weekly series highlight. I know there's one that we really want to talk about. Dylan, what do you have in mind?
Not the one we really want to talk about. I have Astros, Dodgers, 250-plus win teams. The Astros kind of been quietly becoming a true World Series contender. Jeremy Pena is earning himself a lot of money this year. Always a fun battle between these two teams that have faced off previously in the World Series. Obviously, any series that kind of has the Dodgers in it has a lot of superstars, but I'm interested to see if the Astros can keep their June success rolling into July against this Dodgers team over the 4th of July weekend.
Ben, you want to introduce the big one?
You know, I'm actually going to go with a different rivalry series, different division series, because this series actually has a lot more implications than the upcoming looming Subway Series. And this is Cardinals Cubs. I mean, come on. This is as good a series as it gets. Their records are almost even right now. The Cardinals have been, pretty good as of late, 7-3 in their last 10, whereas the Cubs are 4-6. It's allowed the Cardinals to get close. They're now going to be within striking range, depending on how this week goes. I mean, who knows if the Pirates bludgeon the Cardinals for this entire week? Maybe they limp into that series and get rolled. But it's your Apple TV game on Friday, on July 4th, at top Mets Yankees, Cardinals Cubs, 49-35 Cubs versus the 47-38 Cardinals.
For the record, I was booing Apple TV, not your pick.
John, do you have a pick in mind?
I don't know if I didn't go over one, but maybe I kind of like maybe the Tigers Guardians, just to see if the Tigers can just run away more with that division there. I mean, they're already up, I think, 11.5 games. So over the Guardians. So I mean, just see if they can just pretty much, lock it in.
Lock in the division in July.
So the big one though, Yankees at the Mets Subway Series. Another Soto versus the Yankees. The pitching matchups are pretty interesting. You have them on the 4th of July this year, which is one of the best times to have the Subway Series, the best rivalry, interleague rivalry in sports. Stroman versus Paul Blackburn to start it off on the 4th of July.
Stroman revenge game.
And then you would go Carlos Rodon at Frankie Montas. Frankie Montas revenge game.
Nah, he doesn't have those.
And then Sunday to end it, you have Max Fried versus Clay Holmes. Fried, a Met killer. Holmes.
You know that'll be a Clay Holmes revenge game. Take the under.
That's going to be a 1-0 with the one being a Lindor solo shot because, of course, it is.
Probably. Stares down Stanton as he's
I was
in the
going to say
dugout
that's
because
more
now
of a
he's
Mark
DH.
Vientos moment Sunday against the lefty.
No, but Lindor has killed the Yankees.
Maybe the cherry on top would be a Clay Holmes complete game shutout, which is impossible with the amount of pitches he could throw. But a Clay Holmes complete game shutout with Louis Torrens being the only home run.
No, just because that was like a nice thing the Yankees and Mets did. The Yankees sending Torrens to the Mets. I feel like we should let that be a nice story, not a revenge thing.
All right, fine. Then Juan Soto absolutely bludgeons you guys.
And it just goes foul every time he hits the ball. He kills it. 600-foot foul balls. I'll sign up for that. But
We'll see.
I think the most obvious thing is Montas is going to pitch a gem just to make me eat my words.
I mean, I don't
He
like
had
watching
to
the Yankees
reverse
lose,
jinx
but it'd be
Dylan.
hilarious.
Dylan said he doesn't have revenge games. So Corey, immediately when Dylan said that, said, I have to find a way to reverse jinx this.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I obviously don't root for the Yankees to lose, but losing to a Frankie Montas gem, knowing the pain it would cause Corey, kind of does make me laugh a little.
Don't you get enough of that in football season?
I don't know. I've only watched the Hard Knocks clip about 1,000 times.
I still can't sleep over it. But that's going to do it for us.
Gotta get that new mattress Saquon is in the commercial for.
Yankees, Mets, 4th of July weekend. What's better than that? A couple more weeks, and then we'll be at the All-Star break. Trade deadline also looming in the back. A lot of teams need to figure out, are they buyers? Are they sellers? Are they going to do nothing? A lot of questions that need to be answered. Does the June swoon end for the Yankees and Mets? Is it just starting for the Phillies, a July swoon? Who knows? We'll find out. Corey Jason, Dylan Mel, John Pauline, Ben Mandel, Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast.